everyone, Judge James. Welcome to Living for Crits, and welcome to the fourth Shadowdark inspired video that I'm putting out here. I have no schedule for content. This is sort of like if something goes in my head, it's getting a video. So I had tinkered with maybe since I've become really obsessed with Shadowdark. Should I do a Shadowdark Sundays, or should I do? Because I tried Talis Tuesdays a couple years ago, and that was kind of cursed. It didn't hold up. So I just figured when I originally created this channel years ago, before I did 3 years of every week streaming with Evie, it was just if something popped in my head, it got a video. And once I realized I could kind of do low production value, boom, we got this, and this is it. At least I sort of have a decent backdrop, and I think the mic is hopefully the mic is picking up a little better. If I have to sit low, this is Cooper's gaming mic. This is what he uses. I did get some tips on better mics, but you're not here to hear about my audio. If you've clicked on this link, you might be here to talk about Shadowdark, which I don't have a book for. I just have, what's on my computer. It's still PDF, and how it relates to Dungeon Crawl Classics when it comes to adventures. This video, what I wanted to do, I saw chatter. If I see chatter on the Discord server, I figure I'm going to come over here and chat about it. There were some questions a few times that popped up about good Dungeon Crawl Classics modules to use with Shadowdark. I don't consider myself an expert on a lot of things, but this says otherwise. I'm gonna toot my own horn for a second, but I got this Goody Award from Goodman Games because of the number of DCC modules I've run. And there are probably other folks who've run a lot of DCC modules, but I made it very loudly known last year at Gen Con 2022. I ran my 100th DCC module. Not 100th session of DCC, but I've completed 100 of the modules, both the first-party modules Goodman's put out and then the third-party modules that, other folks have put out. So I consider myself not just an aficionado, but a bit of a knowledgeable chap when it comes to DCC adventures. And since there are a lot of Shadowdark fans right now looking for adventures to play through with their groups, I thought it would be a fun video here and discussion about what are some good DCC modules to look at if you're trying to find inspiration for your Shadowdark game. And I've got 5 I'm going to talk about in a second that are my recommendations, my top choices. But before I get to those, I kind of wanted to put some criteria together. So I think my second video I did was about comparing and contrasting some of Shadowdark to Dungeon Crawl Classics, where they're similar, where they're different. It was not a very well put together video. I think some folks said I was mildly enthusiastic. I appreciate that. But it was what I had at the time based on the limited information from the Kickstarter and then just from the quick start rules. But when looking at Dungeon Crawl Classics and this heavy tome, and eventually this heavy tome, where I have, my squishy Plague Doctor and my new Swamp Dragon that I painted up, where I have them at some point, I'll be holding a book here, maybe this summer, that says Shadowdark on it. One of the 2 covers that I'm getting. And I can compare them and contrast them that way. But I real quickly, as you are looking at DCC modules, I think that there are just a few factors, a few things you need to think about when you're going into conversion and when you're going into selecting what's going to fit for your group. The first thing is just the design and aesthetic of DCC compared to Shadowdark. While they're very similar in the old school stylings, Shadowdark, as I've said before, is kind of like a grim, somewhat gritty dungeon crawler that holds firm to those, questing around in the dark and exploring the all that is below the earth, right? Dungeon Crawl Classics, it has no fear of cranking things to 11. You're a first level character. We don't care. Welcome to the Purple Planet. You're probably going to die. All right. And that's not just the funnels. That's a lot of the early adventurers. That one of the great things about DCC is that if you are a beginning player and you are starting a new campaign in Dungeon Hall Classics, you don't have to wait until a higher level play like you did in D&D to face some pretty crazy challenges. You're going to see them early on in your questing. So some of the adventures do crank to 11 really, really early. If you think about Sailors in a Starless Sea, those of you who have played it, your 0 level characters, and a quick spoiler alert, if you're going to play it, like skip ahead like 15 seconds, in the end, and it's been out for a while, so I think it's like, are we past the spoiler alert point? It's what, a 10-year-old module, a 9-year-old module at this point? In the end, you're on a friggin' ziggurat fighting all these like chaos beastmen, and you're gonna die. A lot of your characters are gonna die, and that level of challenge is doable with tons and tons of 0 levels, with endless 0 levels. And why you can do that same experience, that same funnel in Shadowdark, a first level party is going to have a hard time with that. And at the end of that, you sail on a ship to another world. We aren't, and at that point, we're not even dealing with some of the basic things of Shadowdark, like the torch mechanics. They're out the window. Who cares about that? You're on a floating underground sea, and anyway, it goes to a place that is beautiful, and everyone should explore. Everyone should play DCC. Okay, there's lots of events at Gen Con coming up. I still feel Shadowdark's a different game, and they're both games that need to be out there. So as much as I've said that, there are really great DCC modules that'll fit your Shadowdark table exceptionally well. Just some points of order if you're converting. The first step is, for those of you who aren't familiar, DCC uses a dice step mechanic: D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, D10, D12, D14, D16, D20, D20, 40, 30, D100. If something becomes more difficult or less difficult, a GM, a judge as they're called in DCC, will pop the difficulty down a dice step or up a dice step. So it might say, well, you're trying to do something, it's a little bit more difficult, roll a D16 instead of a D20. It is not uncommon, just a different way of saying advantage, disadvantage from 5e. It's just in a different plane of existence. So as you're going through modules, if something says that it's harder, roll a D16 or a D14, use disadvantage. If it says easier, D24, D30, use advantage. And that part's pretty easy. Luck versus luck tokens. So in Shadowdark, there is the option to have luck tokens out there for the more pulpy feel. And if you're going to run a DCC adventure, I strongly advise you use and you let the luck tokens flow. Like Savage Worlds players, let the bennies flow. Let the luck tokens flow. Get them out to your party. Get them in their hands. Let them use them. The luck mechanic in DCC almost guarantees you success. It's you're spending a pool of 3 to 18 points. Sometimes more if you're playing in DCC Lankmar, where you are, and definitely more if you're playing as a halfling or a thief that gets more points when they spend their luck, to directly add to your rolls. You rolled a 12, you need a 15, you can spend 3 points of luck to get there. Luck tokens just give you a re-roll. It's not going to be a guaranteed success. So, that needs to be kept in mind as you're playing. But if you skip those out, if you don't include those, it might be a challenge for some of these DCC modules, especially the harder ones. You're just not going to auto burn to that victory. And the same goes for spell burn. That honestly is one of the things I've enjoyed, playing as much Shadowdark as I have. Is I'm kind of happy. I'm enjoying that experience of the wizard can't rely on the end of adventure just nuking themselves from orbit with a spell burn to take all their stats down and just blast everyone with the crazy flaming hands. Sometimes especially in tournament play and con play, that really I think changes the dynamic of the game in a way that, while epic, it doesn't make anything feel gritty. And I'm sure folks can comment on that below, and that's fine if you want to do that, and if you disagree with me. And then finally, you might see damage stats that are like a D7 damage or a D5 damage or a D14 damage. I mean, I personally don't think the DCC dice should be in Shadowdark, just because now that I've watched Kelsey Dionne's video on Rangers, how much thought was put into why certain weapons have certain damage and which classes can use them. I would just go to what I would say round down personally, but maybe not always, to something that's a good, if it's a D7, make it a D6. If it's a D14, make it a D12. I wouldn't round that up. So, anyway, I thought this would be a fun comparison. I did take a look at, because I was going to discuss monsters. I couldn't remember in DCC if the monster in DCC, if I felt they were innately harder or easier. And I thought we'd do an owlbear test. And I actually have an owlbear. If you can see it, it's a baby bestiary owlbear up here. I would have brought him closer, but unfortunately his fish comes out of his mouth too easily, so I didn't want to mess with that. But I did want to take the owlbear from DCC and compare and contrast it to the owlbear in Shadowdark, just to show that, they really, honestly, I think when it comes down to the monsters, this is going to be a piece of cake to convert them or to use them interchangeably. So an owlbear in Shadowdark comes with a 13 armor class compared to the DCC's AC of 17. All right, the DCC owlbear is going to be harder to hit. So you either want to go in one direction or the other, swap one out. But the DCC owlbear only has 3d8 hit dice, 3d8 hit points, right? So you're going to be looking at, anywhere from 3 to upwards of 24, averaging around 12 or 13. The Shadowdark owlbear is a bit beefier. Maybe it's an easier target with 30 hit points. Shadowdark owlbear is going to do 2 claw attacks, +5 to hit with each of them for 1d10 damage each. The owlbear can do a bite or a claw at a +6 for the bite, +4 for the claw, a d6 +2 damage, or a d4 for the claw. So bite is d6 +2, claw is d4. All right, and it gets 2 actions, so that you could attack twice. You have 2 action dice in DCC. You have 2 attacks essentially in owlbear, I'm almost in Owlbear Rodeo in Shadowdark. We're really not that, really pretty close here. They're doing D10 damage. They're doing D6 +2. The special ability for owlbears in DCC, they get spell resistance. I really like in Shadowdark how a lot of the monsters do one thing really, really cool. And the owlbear in Shadowdark has a crush attack. There's an extra die of damage if it hits the target with both claws. So, really, they're different but same, right? So I'm pointing this out, and you could say that use the Constitution saves from Shadowdark. Use fort saves from DCC, go back and forth, however you want to mess with that. So I'm saying this because as you go through the adventures, you probably don't need to sit there and really carefully convert things. I don't worry about that. Just grab the book, run the adventure, and when you need to make some modifications, do it on the fly. Write on pieces of paper or whatever. Anyway, so I am I don't know how many minutes. I'm 13 minutes and I haven't recommended a single module yet. And I'm playing Shadow the Demon Lord here shortly. So, honestly, I got to be careful. I got to make sure I move things along here. And my players are going to be, my friends are going to be ticked at me that I'm up here filming a video instead. All right, so I have 5 modules I want to talk about briefly, and just share these with all of you about these are modules I think would fit really well in the Shadowdark aesthetic, and I think they would fit really well at your table if you're running, somewhere along the lines of 1st to 3rd level Shadowdark adventures. And the first one I'm going to say is Doom of the Savage King. So as I'm looking through these adventures, I'm looking at adventures where you have dungeon crawling and exploration that are going to fit. They're going to be in there, and that there are opportunities to use some, any, or all of those unique things that make Shadowdark. So traps, pits, subterranean threats, torches, the torch mechanic. Not spending too much time outside, but you got your time outside. I know there's rules for overland travel and everything now, all that good stuff. But this is a great module for a few reasons. The first is Doom of the Savage Kings by Harley Stroh. It's a first level DCC module. I think it'd be a great first level module for your characters. In Shadowdark, this gives you a town, the town of Herat. It gives you essentially a starting point, a place that you can visit, a pretty fleshed out town that you can use as a base of operations after this adventure is over. There is a wilderness map, there is some overland travel, and the dungeon is a short but sweet dungeon with some fun quirks to it. It's not long. The dungeon itself, I believe, it looks like just 10 chambers. So this is something you can complete in a couple evenings. If you're just doing the dungeon itself, you can get it done in one night. If you're doing it as a on a campaign, you want to draw it out, go for it. I'm just telling my players I'm running late. And since one of them might watch this, or two of them, they're going to be pissed at me for doing this. And why are you doing this on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night? And I'm sorry. Again, inspiration hit me. I want to do it tonight. Anyway, Doom of the Savage Kings, I would say if I have to recommend one module, if you're going to get one DCC module to make it something you're going to run with Shadowdark, this is the one I'd get. I understand that that Sailor's Nostalgia C is like the go-to beginning module. I still feel like that one skews more towards the crazy over-the-top of DCC, which you can play it, you can try it, but it's going to be kind of wonky in how it turns out, in my opinion. My second pick is going to be going up a few levels from there, and that's going to be with, up a level from there with Emerald Enchanter by Joe Goodman. Again, we're talking DCC 66.5 and DCC 69, okay? These are early adventures. Emerald Enchanter is a phenomenal dungeon crawl where you have a fairly large multi-level facility you get to go through. There is some weird. There's a lot of traps, and you might have to tinker with some of the difficulty classes of the traps and understand that your PCs may get blitzed a bit. DCC characters, I was trying to decide or figure out how far are they on hit points. A DCC character gets a hit dice at 0 level of a D4, but a Shadowdark character, if they have bonus hit points because of having a constitution of 12 or higher, they get, +1 for 12 or 13 up to +4 for 18 to 19. They get a few additional hit points possibly. I know my Shadowdark party on my Friday night game, they have a ton of HP, but I think just rolled really well, and one of them's a dwarf. That kind of helps. Emerald Enchanter will give you definitely several nights of gameplay. You can crank up the darkness in the module. You're dealing with a wizard's lair. You're not dealing with a traditional, like a dungeon, but you can still crawl around in there. There's still environs to experience. But I really feel like all of the weird wizardy stuff is going to be a great fit, and it's going to give your players something different than just running around in I want to say stereotypical, a more traditional dungeon. So I've run this a couple times, and it's a great module. I'm going to shift over again here a bit for a third-party product. I like to celebrate third-party products whenever possible. And Strange Night at the Pint and Pony. This is just, it's one of my, so it's by C. Aaron Creeder, and I got this, I think, in a Kickstarter, a small Kickstarter that Studio 9 Games did. And this was designed to be an adventure, a 0 level funnel for the more short in stature classes. In DCC, it's class. There's no racing class. It's all just classes, or ancestry in class. It's just racing class. It's just class. So this is designed to be halflings, dwarves, folks like that, shorter humans. You could do the same thing with goblins, dwarves, and halflings if you want to do it that way, but and run it in that direction. But it does give you could take the Pint and Pony, put it in Heorot from Doom of the Savage Kings. Hey, and look, there's a wizard nearby. 3 adventures, and now you have a setting to base yourself out of. Pint and Pony has a rather large underground component to it, and has a very, very long, but not with tons and tons of rooms, but just the tunnels are miles long underneath the city here. Pint and Pony gives you a lot of space to explore the underdark of your world, and at a low level. And I just feel like it's one. I had a great time running this module. I ran it, I think, in 2020, late 2020. Everything I'm recommending here, I've run. So if I say it, play it. The next 2 modules I'm going to recommend here are part of an overall recommendation that if you're looking for a setting, you can do no better, I feel, in some regards, if you haven't played it, than visiting Lankhmar, the city of 70,000 smokes. DCC Lankhmar is an amazing treatment of the work of Fritz Leiber, and if you're looking for a place for a larger, more urban setting, so much in the DCC Lankhmar box set is just material about the city and the culture and the world of Naywan, that if you are looking for a place to start a campaign and you want something more fleshed out but you don't know where to go, if you want the sword and sorcery and the lower magic feel that I think is already inherent in Shadowdark, I don't think that anyone would be upset exploring the city of Lankhmar. And I think there's 2 amazing adventures that really fit the Shadowdark feel. The first one, and you have to get Grave Matters, which is a really good adventure, so don't get me wrong. Grave Matters is a 2nd level Michael Curtis adventure, and it's a heist. So heists are great. The next one I'm going to mention is a heist also, but I'm actually not talking about this one. In the back of this adventure is one of my favorite DCC modules, the Madhouse Meet, which is also by Michael Curtis. And this was the very first DCC Lankhmar adventure that was released. It was released as part of, was it I think it was Free RPG Day one year that they put this out. And it's a 1st level adventure. It is, you are trapped, you are chained up, you don't have any of your gear, you need to escape. I've run it at a local in-person gaming group in Pittsburgh when I lived there, and then I ran it to kick off a DCC Lankhmar campaign as the introductory adventure. And it's a 2-level adventure. It forces the characters to go scrounging for gear, and I think that feel-wise, even the you're fighting a lot of people, you're fighting a lot of NPCs, so it's not a lot you need to worry about converting. You could essentially just make a bunch of NPCs up and you're ready to roll. And then if you want to go a bit further, I just ran Mercy on the Day of the Eel. I ran this at War of the Cyclops Con last week, and you've got some heisting in the beginning, and I think DCC Lankhmar is great with heists. And while there's no dungeon crawl in this adventure. It's just not. It's all without giving away too much. It's all overland or in buildings. If you want to explore some of what DCC has to offer and take your Shadowdark campaign into an urban setting and put the torches down, I think this is a really easy adventure to convert. Lots of anti-NPC play, and when you deal with the monsters in here, you could so easily swap them out for anything else in the Shadowdark book that's level appropriate. I'll take the spoilers at this point, so don't watch, but for the GMs out there, for the judges out there, for the DMs out there, Mercy on the Day of the Eel eventually puts the characters in a fantasy... well, it's all a fantasy. It teleports the characters to another place where they're dealing with fanciful like creatures that are like sketches in a fantastical map the characters are trapped in. You do not need to use the monsters in this book, although I think they're easily created or easily converted. You can put whatever you want in there. The owlbears from Shadowdark, the Shadowdark rules, the goblins from Shadowdark. You come up with your own the point of this adventure is the story itself. And Brendan LaSalle wrote this, and this is probably one of my new favorite DCC modules. I've played this last year at a local in-person con we did here at our house, and with Mark Plord running it. And he did just an epic job GMing it, and then getting a chance to run it last week. I'm just, the whole time I'm running, I'm thinking, I could do this with Shadowdark. There's like no question about it. Whether or not you want to set your campaign in the city of Lankmar, or you want to just bolt this on to whatever town, I would say it does fit better in an urban setting where you can have some stuff going on in the background. But there you go. Those are my top 5 picks right now. 4 that I think are tried and true, and 1 that I'm super, super hype on right now because I just ran it, and I just ran. It's usually my favorite thing. But if you're going to go out there today and you're going to get one, I'm going to tell you Doom of the Savage Kings. Go with a Harley Stroh adventure. You'll never go wrong if you see Harley Stroh's name on there on a module. And you're always going to have a great time. And you know what? If you love Shadowdark and you're getting a high playing it and you're just having a great time, but you also see the DCC Purple Planet box set and you're like, hey, look, I love Shadowdark. I love everything Kelsey's putting out, but I want to go to DCC Purple Planet. Just do it. I mean, you're not going to break anything. You're just going to have a good time in a different way. So there we go. 5 modules. If you have any modules that you would recommend, if you're DCC fans out there and you follow my stuff, and you want to pop them in the comments, and maybe we'll talk about them. And I'm kicking around some ideas of how to toss some more Shadowdark content out there, since I've enjoyed doing it. And we'll see what comes next. No promises and no commitments, but I will try. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great night.